So this video today will be my spoiler review of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you want to see my non-spoiler review of the game, you can click on the card in the top right of the video right now, or I'll leave the link to the video down in the description. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. Now, I am going to go ahead and say spoiler warning for the entire story of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. So, I'm going to try to talk about I'm going to try to not talk about every little thing that I loved about this game, because this video, it would just make it long as hell. But I'll try to go over things in order, like chronologically, that I think were really good decisions and made the story great. First of all, I like how we didn't play the entirety of Peter Quill's story in the prologue, and we played the entirety of it over time throughout the game, because it leaves us as the player wanting for more insight as to exactly how the day that he got taken went down. I also like how, because Eidos Montreal is establishing this game in an already living and breathing universe, that we don't have to go through intros for everybody, and we can just hop right in, because the game assumes on some level we are familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy because of the MCU. Similar kind of to how in the MCU with Spider-Man Homecoming, there wasn't really an origin story because we've already been familiar with two other iterations of Spider-Man in the movies. The foreshadowing in this game is also incredible, with turning what seems to be kind of a quick joke about Nikki being Peter's daughter in Chapter 2 and having that be a huge component to the story and the character development that he goes through. Also, introducing Raker as a character, but putting little to no focus on him whatsoever in Chapter 2, only to have him be one of the main villains of the game, was great to experience as the story evolved. Having the Soul Stone appear in Chapter 1 was also a dope decision, because it lets people know that it's an Infinity Stone when Peter touches it, but then they just kind of leave it where it's at. This kind of left the player to question whether or not that was just an Easter egg, or if it will deal with, if it'll actually be a story component at all. I'm honestly very happy that it was a story component, because when I went through Chapter 1 myself, I was actually asking myself, I was like, is this just an Easter egg or what? I was kind of hoping that it was going to be a story component, because I was like, if that's just an Easter egg, I honestly wouldn't have liked that decision, because I feel like Infinity Stones are too big of a cosmic player to not, to just leave as Easter eggs, especially if it's not just like a side thing that you would read about in an archive or anything like that. Like, if you're actually going to have one of the main characters interact with an Infinity Stone in the story, it's a good thing that they didn't just make that an Easter egg, in my opinion. Going through the game as well, obviously the Guardians were already an established group beforehand, but the interactions with each other as the story progresses is great to see their overall team development to what they become by the end. They truly feel like a family by the end of the game, in comparison to the beginning, where they just kind of feel like they're a team that works together. The choice to have Nikki be the matriarch and how Karel was killed by the Magus was a great decision, because it allows Nikki's story to almost parallel Peter Quill's, where the whole reason she is doing what she is doing with the Soul Stone was because she can't cope with the loss of her mother, which is something that Peter knows all about. Showing the corruptness of the Nova Corps as well, by refusing to help when the Universal Church of Truth starts to take over, is a great way to kind of diffuse the image of the Nova Corps being a savior of some kind, and kind of showing how they're corrupt, and they really just kind of want, I don't know if corrupt would be the right word per se, but they don't care about actually protecting the galaxy, they just care about order. Now, when we're talking about the other Guardians and their character progressions, having Drax believe in the promise of the church showed great development, if I can speak today, from him accepting the death of his wife and daughter, and opened the door for the rest of the Guardians to go through their own emotional journey as well. And it's great that as the player, we can kind of see that play out in real time. You know, Rocket conquers his fear of water because when he was experimented on, they would keep him in a cage, like with water or something like. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but it was because he was experimented on and basically tortured using water by his creators. But we got to see him conquer his fear of water in real time. We got to see Gamora kind of relieve her stress about killing Nebula, which obviously happened before the game took place, and she finally confessed that that's what she did. And Groot, honestly, so Groot's like the one that didn't necessarily. I'm not saying he doesn't develop as a character, but he's like, in comparison to what Peter, Drax, Gamora, and Rocket went through, Groot didn't really go through as big of a character development. And I don't inherently blame them for that. It is kind of hard to convey a big emotional kind of character journey for Groot when all he can say is "I am Groot" and everything has to be translated through Rocket. I feel like it would have lost some of it's like just some of its touch in comparison to how the other Guardians were. The addition of characters like Fin Fang Foom and Phantom Thanos were some of the best decisions I think they could have made, because it allowed the story to be focused on the Universal Church of Truth while also encountering other significant Marvel villains or beings in general along the way. I still personally think Thanos isn't dead, but they didn't hint, in this game at least, they didn't hint at whether or not he is still alive in reality or not. But this decision with the villains kind of being sprinkled throughout kind of as side objectives for the main story, it's almost akin to like a Spider-Man game, you know? Just Spider-Man PS4, for example, like the main end of spoiler for Spider-Man PS4 if you haven't played it, but it's been out for 3 years, but obviously the final villain of Spider-Man PS4 was Doc Ock, but you know, throughout the game you'll fight like the Shocker, you know, at the very beginning of the game, you fight Kingpin, so you get to experience these other villains as well without having them be the main focus of the story, which I think is the way they did it in Guardians was a great way they let it play out. Now for the end of the game, right? I truly did enjoy how they decided to go about it, but the final boss being Magus, I feel should have gone in a different way. So like, you know, talking about the end of the game, we defeat Raker, and then we go on like some kind of like a victory walk, and then we kind of once we leave, you know, it feels like it's all said and done. But then Adam Warlock turns into Magus for like the final fight. And see, even talking about this, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because it just felt out of place, in my opinion, the way it went about it. Although I also encountered a very bad sound glitch, so I obviously haven't put out all of my walkthrough gameplay videos at this point. But when you get to Chapter 16, yeah, like once the fake credits hit, I just encountered, I don't know if it was because I had streaming mode on, but I tried it twice, and it happened both times. I encountered this deafening sound glitch where like the sound just got turned up to the max out of nowhere, and like you couldn't even understand what the characters were saying until right before Adam Warlock transformed into the Magus. I honestly don't know if that kind of took me out of the story a little bit, but it is what it is. But in my opinion, overall, it just felt out of place. And it wasn't because the fight was against Magus, which I was hoping was going to happen regardless, but it was because the story already felt resolved. Like, what they should have done, in my opinion, is they should have made that victory walk, or that victory sequence, kind of like a dream sequence. Almost as if they were being shown a vision from Magus again, and it actually wasn't real, only then to be revealed that they have to fight Magus in that dream realm, and then they actually win. The whole victory walk without confronting the Magus yet felt sort of undeserved, in my opinion, but I overall still think the story was fantastic, you know. I almost forgot to talk about Adam Warlock as well in general, who I think has a badass design in this game. When you first encounter him, he almost looks like a God of War character. Like, that's how dope his design looks. Obviously, almost right after that, he gets a more comic booky outfit, But I still think his design is one of the best original designs for a character that I've ever seen. I plan on making more videos on the Easter eggs in Guardians, the still potential connection to Avengers or other superheroes, and what's more to come from this game overall. But also overall, I mean, just like in my non-spoiler review, I give this game an 8.5 out of 10, only really knocking it for the story not being the best as it could be, although still being great, along with some animation glitches. I honestly hope Square Enix and Eidos Montreal choose to make DLC for this game because of its success, or at least can feed us info about a sequel. So comment if you played this game and enjoyed the way they took the story, because I honestly love this game. This game was way better than I expected it to be. But feel free to also like and subscribe for future Marvel content, and I appreciate you for watching.